All right, Coach Rob Jeter, very kind enough to join us here on WAND. Super exciting time if you're a Leatherneck fan. The program goes from being kind of this video game, Twitter phenomenon to getting a big name coach. And then you bring out an assistant in Nick Irvin, who all of a sudden ushers in probably the greatest recruiting class in the history of the program. So first of all, Coach, thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to ask, how have you instantly injected enthusiasm into this program through recruiting and other means?
Well, I think first of all, taking a look at the job, I think I saw some things in the job that most people just didn't see. I saw good bones, great people, a town that a lot of people are like, okay, why are you going to Macomb, right? But I think there are great people there. And I think it has a lot of similarities to where I went to college. I went to Wisconsin-Platteville, small place. And I watched how Bo Ryan took that place and had it rocking. So I was excited. I was excited to have the opportunity. I mean, to become a head coach isn't easy. I mean, these opportunities are very few, very difficult to get. So I was more than happy when Danielle and our president gave me the opportunity. So I just kind of came in and just do what we normally do. We just try to make sure that you put yourself around good people, like-minded people that want to work hard. Obviously, for 25 years, I've developed relationships. So I went after guys that I knew in a staff. And part of building that staff was to make sure we brought in guys that were familiar with each other, knowing that we were probably going to have to revamp the entire roster. And trying to do that in a COVID situation was really critical.
All right, so I got to ask, what did you see in Nick Irvin? My podcast partner, my buddy. What did you like about him other than his state championships?
Well, he's a South Sider, man. I'm a South Side Chicago guy myself, so we stick together.
You went to Quigley South? Was that the school?
I went to Quigley South. Yeah, now it's St. Rita High School. Yep.
Okay, because they took over that building, I think.
They did.
And then Quigley disbanded, right?
So then Quigley was Quigley North, which was downtown. And then off Rush Street, I believe, or it was close. It was down there, and then Quigley South. So Quigley, I'm pretty sure Quigley North or Quigley is still around.
Okay, cool. So yeah, what kinds of things other than just the reputation that you heard about Nick, because obviously he comes from one of the most famous families in the state in the basketball world. But when you were talking to Nick, what got you fired up about bringing him on staff with you?
Well, first of all, his energy. I think his energy, it just kind of radiates from him, right? Like he's so energetic, so passionate about what he does. I think his love for the kids, genuinely, he cares for his guys, and that's really important. And the fact that we get along, other staff members, we all get along with Nick. We all know Nick. We love him. And you touched on it, man. His family is such basketball royalty. I know his brother Lance. I'm going to get a chance to know his other brothers. And it just was a natural fit. Now, to ask him to do it and actually get him to do it, that was a different story. You have your wish list of what you want to do, and just so happened it worked out for us.
Wow. Well, if early indicators or anything, I mean, he has just you and him both have knocked the doors off the expectations. Getting guys, I'm trying to think who's signed and who hasn't, so I know who I can ask you about. But guys like Ramin Hinton, who was a force at Curie, saw him in the city championship game 2 years ago. Tamel Pearson transferring, Marcus Watson. What are some of the different pieces that you're adding to your program other than just the 3 stars that we see next to their names?
Yeah, well, you're trying to get a fit, right? Trying to get some synergy. And when I looked at the team, the first thing we did was went out. We tried to become more mature right away. So we went out to Highland and got some of that group of kids that all went to Highland. That actually played for my former assistant, who's now my associate head coach, and Chad Boudreau. So we tried to get a cluster of guys that already had, again, chemistry, knew each other. So we went out and got those guys, and then the next piece was then following up with Nick, and that took a little bit more of a process to get him on board. And then once we did, then now you had to start to add some special pieces if we could. And I think Tamel was a huge get for us because he's older, more mature, comes from a league that's a little bit above ours. highly recruited out of Chicago. And I thought that kind of helped get the ball rolling with some of the others. And with the Ramin and with the Marcus, the timing was perfect with Marcus, coaching change. And obviously played for Nick. It was one of those where that wasn't as easy as it looked. It took a little bit to work that, to get that to happen. But, timing was really important. I think the fact that, our relationships and friendships, not just with the staff, but with the players that we have, it just seemed to all come together.
So I got to ask about Bo Ryan because, like I said before we recorded, anytime somebody follows somebody to 4 or 5 different stops between playing and coaching, how many is it? What's your relationship with Bo Ryan? You must have a very unique insight into that man.
Yeah, we tease. He's like Uncle Bo. He can be a father figure for mine. He's definitely a mentor. He's someone that everything that I know about basketball, as far as how I put together my philosophies and how I try to coach my teams, he's the reason for that. And I try to make him proud on everything that I do. And he's just a huge influence. And I think the biggest thing I learned from him was that just keep things simple. It's basketball isn't something that needs to be done made over complicated, right? You just got to get a group of guys to play together, sacrifice a little bit so everyone can have more, teach the fundamentals, make sure you're prepared for situations. Make sure you can get more shots than the other team and keep the ball in the basket on the other side. I mean, it really does sound that simple.
Stop. Okay, listen, as somebody who went to a couple schools that have nowhere near that level of success recently, I just want to say that you make it sound so easy, but I know it's not that easy.
It comes off my tongue so easy because that's what I believe in. And I've seen it happen. Mm-hmm. We won multiple national titles. I was part of Bo's first national title. Then I saw what he did at Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Very similar to Western when we went in when I was an assistant with him the first time. Mm-hmm. A program, I think they only won 8 games coming in. And then instantly we turned that around. And then ultimately going to Wisconsin and watching him put together Big Ten championship teams and me be a part of that. And it works. So I really believe in it.
Okay, I know you got at least one funny story about something he said to a bus driver or something he did at a practice. I just need one. Just give me one Bo Ryan story that we haven't heard.
I'll give you one because I was just looking at the Green Bay staff and a real good friend of mine, Freddie Owens, who was a player. So I coached Freddie. I was an assistant, and Freddie was a player for Bo. And back then, you didn't have to dribble the ball back then. Now all this and one and all this dribble drive stuff, I think it's changed the game. So 4 or 5 dribbles, 6 dribbles, that's pretty common now. Well, Freddie dribbled the ball. I mean, he had it on film. It was probably 9 times. And Bo counted them on film. And his whole point was, Freddie, I think those cornrows, he had the cornrows in his hair. He thought his braids were a little too tight. He said, they have to be a little too tight for you to dribble that much. And he just had a sense of humor that the guys accepted, it was a dry sense of humor, but it always served the point and made a purpose. And that's just one of many. I can give you 1,000 stories.
So you were also with him at a very interesting time in this state's history, in your new state, I mean, in Illinois. Bill Self had Illinois' program cranking. What was it like going up again? I know you came into Milwaukee the year after the 04-05 team, but do you have any stories about Wisconsin-Illinois battles there in the early 2000s that you can remember? I mean, Brian Cook is a player who's from our viewing area, from Lincoln, actually not too far away from Macomb.
I got 2 good stories. Well, the first was when at Wisconsin, we show up to play and we have red uniforms on. In Illinois, that they had an orange out. So they had their bright orange uniform. So on TV, you could not tell who was who. I mean, the red and the orange class, it was ugly. that was bad. The second story I can tell you about is when I was I was an assistant at Milwaukee with Bo, and we played Illinois. And I think the preview to the game was Illinois versus, and they had a Hostess cupcake.
No.
on the screen.
Oh, no.
And it was like our first team at Milwaukee, and it was Illinois versus Cupcakes, one of those ESPN things that they did. We didn't win the game, but That was the start of putting together a pretty good program at Milwaukee.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Who's the best player that you've ever had to scout against in the Big Ten in particular that you can remember? Because you've been at Minnesota, you've been at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I know that's an
Yeah.
impossible question, and I realize that there's probably 5 names, but who, maybe not the best player, period, but who is the player that you had the hardest time scouting as a staff that you can remember?
You know, our thing was we really tried to guard guys one-on-one in the post area with heavy help, but never really trying to double guys. So I thought any of those post players that were in the Big Ten, there were a lot of them at the time. Those guys were always difficult. But outside the Big Ten, I think what I think about is some guys that had big nights on us. And the one guy from Temple, I think it was Greer, a little point guard, came into the Kohl Center, and I think he dropped 50 on us.
No way.
It was an overtime game. It was an overtime game.
50?
And he just couldn't miss. And you know, we don't give up 50 points in a game, let alone give it to one player, right? And this guy came in and lit us up for 50, and we tried everything. It was just one of those where how do you stop him, right? And he was only a 6-foot point guard, 6'1" point guard, but he wouldn't miss. Like the ball would hit his hands, and he would just like redirect it towards the rim, and it went, and everything went in.
How about I know you coached Tim Flowers at Milwaukee, and we were talking on our podcast that he might be the strongest player that those coaches had ever seen. When you think about strength, who's maybe one of the strongest players? That's kind of a fun question. Strongest player you've ever seen in your life?
See, you're asking me some things where I'm like, maybe I'm getting old. When you're talking about strong, oh man. When most recently, Big Nick Ward for Michigan State, he's a strong dude now. You get him down in the low blocks. I mean, it was over, right? He was going to make those shots. I thought when I was my time here in Minnesota, I thought Jordan Murphy, kid that we had down low, he's only 6'7", but you just couldn't stop him. So strength comes in different forms, right? Like physical strength. I don't know if he was the most physical guy, but man, he could put you in the basket. He always got fouled. I think of guys like that when I think of strength. Of course, Orlando Tucker at 6'4", playing the 4-man in the Big Ten. I mean, how does that happen as a freshman, right? How does that happen without being strong? And Doe, he was pretty strong for his size.
For fans who don't know Orlando Tucker, he is one of the most underrated players, I think, in the last 2 decades in Big Ten basketball.
Absolutely. The leading scorer in the Wisconsin history, kind of did his work unassumingly, but would just rip your heart out. Just a competitor. What he's done for that program now as an assistant, he's added some more life to that program. No matter where he goes, he leaves an imprint, and he does it very quickly. He's just a special guy, special person.
Wow. So I got a question for you. So there's a lot of high school coaches will be watching this in the state. What's your advice to them of how they can best build a relationship with you and help to have that great symbiotic in-state relationship with you? Just what's your advice to those coaches watching at home?
Well, we've been talking about Bo, right? And the one thing I learned from Bo was that it didn't matter who you were. If you stopped by his office, it wasn't a 2-minute conversation. It might be a 2-hour conversation. If you came by his practice, no problem. Come on in, have a seat. If you wanted to spend time after practice and meet, he was always accessible, and he loved to talk basketball. So I would say that just reach out to us. Just, my practices are always going to be open. My office door is always going to be open. My cell phone, I still have a 414 cell phone. That's not going to change. Milwaukee number. And just come and visit with us. We would love to, and you don't have to come visit with us. Matter of fact, if you invite us to come down, we'll come down and visit with you. So I think I've just learned the old school way, and it's always been good that way. The relationship piece is good, and the old school way of coaching, where we used to have basketball camps, and you had a crew of like 30 guys that would come every summer to your basketball camp. I miss those days.
That's awesome. Final question. We got a lot of Packers fans. I was reading in your bio that your dad is in the Hall of Fame for the Packers. Is that true?
That's right. That's right. I'm hoping that I don't catch any grief down in Illinois with a big Packer helmet. I've got a couple of them in my office.
Hey, there are a lot of Packers fans, especially in Central Illinois.
Right.
It's not 50-50, but there are a lot of fans.
Well,
Packers. So, do you have
I'm
any
gonna find them.
memories of growing up, like running around, with some of those legends?
Yeah, there every year we would go up to the reunion game, to the alumni game. So meeting Barstar, Fuzzy, Robinson, all those guys are always special. I think the story that my dad tells me that I keep with me and I always share with my team. My dad joined the Packers. He came from Canada, so he played for the University of Iowa. He was a running back. He was a two-way player back then. So he was a running back, defensive back. He actually held the Rose Bowl record for like almost 200 yards and only 11 carries in the Rose Bowl. So
Okay.
they beat Cal Berkeley to win the Rose Bowl. I think it was a 59 Rose Bowl. So he ended up taking the money to go to Canada. So the Green Bay Packers had his rights coming out of Iowa, but he ended up going the Canadian route for a few years. And his deal was like, he did it because he took the money. He's like, and I remember that story because he's like, whatever you say you're going to do, then you need to do it. So he honored that contract there. Then he came down to the Packers, and obviously that team was really loaded. So they were trying to figure out where to put him. So he's in practice, and they were going to put him at wide receiver. And so he's running a route, and he was like the third option in this route. And so he was only going maybe 70%. Well, Bart started through it and ended up traveling like 20 yards over his head. Well, Lombardi saw this. So Lombardi comes down and he tells the story. He's like, I can hear my dad telling it, like he's sitting next to me. And he's like, Lombardi comes down, grabs him by his helmet. And he's like, now listen, today could be your last day as a Packer. If you're going to give that type of effort, I don't care if you're the first option or the third option, we go 100%. And if you're gonna give that type of effort, then I suggest that you find a new place to play. And from that story, it kind of framed how my dad was. My dad was 100% effort all the time, competitive. It didn't matter if we were playing backgammon at home or we were playing 21 in the backyard. He was going to figure out a way to beat you.
That's so cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, I know you got a lot of still recruiting and planning to do. I definitely want to let you go, but thank you so much for taking time to get to know you a little bit better. As you know, this is a humongous basketball state, and it's a state that is hungry to see its state teams win and get to the NCAA tournament like you've done 2 times on your own and a bunch of other times with Coach Bo. So just thank you so much for giving us a glimpse into you behind the scenes.
Well, I appreciate it. Let's do this again.